Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome again. We are 25 days away to election, and I have to say, it is going to be great. We are looking at the numbers each day, and it is good to go. So continue. Please make your voice heard. Tell your story right there in the ballot box. Get your request in. Got like 4 days now, maybe 5. Just make sure that you look at October 13th and say, hey, before midnight, I need to request my ballot. If you haven't registered, get it, because you have 11 days to the last time that you can to request your ballot. And trust me, it takes about 5 to 7 days to get your ballot. You'll get it. Takes a little bit of time. They have to print it, then put it in the mail and send it to you. But if you do so before the 13th, you will actually get your ballot in before the deadline. Now, I will tell you that you will still have an opportunity to request your ballot all the way up until October 20th to make sure that you can vote for this election. Our early voting starts October 26th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So please make sure that you listen and go to miadmason.com/VBM so that you can find out where your ballot boxes are. And of course, you can find out where your early voting locations are by doing /early voter. Now, tonight is supposed to be a part 2 of our series on marijuana and why it's important for our farmers, our communities, legislation, and for our nation to basically help us decriminalize it. So we went over the outline pretty much in part 1. It was very short. We expect tonight to be pretty short as well. So we are going to be talking a little bit about the history, the disenfranchisement of, the marijuana and how it was treated like other, products that were illegal and then came back or were taxed. Then, of course, we got part 3 coming up here in a week, and it's going to be about the policy, what we can do to actually help our communities with this product. Many in our community are very successful in their businesses with it thus far because of certain legalization, and how we can expand upon it with the products that we can have in part 4. So we're talking about, marijuana's little, sober cousin hemp. So definitely check out part 4, part 3, and tonight. So before we begin, I wanted to make sure that we give a big shout out. We haven't done this in a while. So to Lynn, Elizabeth, Merrill, Carol, Greg, Yvonne, Sherry, William, John, Thomas, Mary, Ellen, Barbara, Andrew, Ruth, Paul, Pamela, Vic, Andrew, Francis, another Lynn, Sandra and Bob, Tim, Daniel, Abit, Sue, Mark, Patricia, John, Dan, Janet, Melvin, Michelle, Elizabeth, Joan, Michael, Charles, Michael again, Daniel, Sherry, Janet, John, Paul, and of course this one says Mom, so thank you, Mom. And then of course we got Allison, thank you, Jennifer, thank you, John, thank you, and Peter, Ann, Vicky, Teresa, Dorothy, Barbara, and Brandon, Jane, Alan, Mark, and Denise, Beatrice, Michelle, Barry, James, Jennifer, Elizabeth, Brad, Susan, Elizabeth, Frederick, Rosa, and Virginia. Whew, we finally got caught up for all the thank yous that are kind of overdue because we've been super busy out there getting what we needed done. And I got new signs in. Thank you for the support. These donations really matter. So when you go to miadmason.us, do understand that that difference makes a huge difference. So let's get right into it. The marijuana. Why has it been affecting so many other folks? Why do we have these inequalities against it? How did it become a Schedule I drug? Well, it was basically the disenfranchised people of color. So as you see the person behind me, we understand that they were also disenfranchised for voting, and they had to fight for that. So if we take a look at what happened a long time ago and how people revolted and basically stood in the streets and fought against something called prohibition, you understand that we are basically still doing the same thing right now, but trying to restore that equity and equality. So let's take an honest look at how it's affected people of color and why we need to be able to change this, especially when people of color are more hurt by everything. So let's get into it. The criminal justice system inequalities. Marijuana has allowed mass incriminations throughout this country for thousands of people, especially those who were Black and Latina. You know, their lives were impacted by marijuana for simple grams. They were often confused as drug dealers, drug pushers, and everything else, and they were targeted. Well, you could be in your hippie pants and everything else walking down the street and you'd be completely cool. But if you were African American or Latina, it looked like you were the actual dealer, so you were arrested. Now, I can tell you that the benefit of having marijuana means that those people no longer went to jail. Let's take a look at Washington, D.C. and what they were able to do. 2 years after decriminalization, a Black person was more than likely to be, arrested for public use of marijuana than white people. Why? Why are we still going after this product? Especially when it's with people of color. There's probably more people in the central part of DC than there is on the southeast of DC. So this is just an example of where it's decriminalized and they still are going after people of color. And we have to stop it. That white supremacy has to stop. It starts with our police and we have to be able to reform that. Well, I am sorry to hear that. Okay, so let's see how this also has affected all of our educational inequalities. Individuals are denied often a college education for any type of prior drug conviction. They don't even allow you to have a moral waiver for basically marijuana charges. Now, we had a congressional amendment back in 1998 that made an amendment to the 1965 Higher Education, which denies financial aid for those with a drug conviction. We would have to be able to work with our legislators to get marijuana removed so that if you ever were charged with marijuana, you can actually continue getting financial aid for your education. This will be a benefit under our administration. Individuals that were convicted of murder, rape, or receiving federal funding, we understand that that's a big issue. But more than likely, because of this big war on drugs that was pushed for so long, it always targeted people of color. We need to end this war on drugs and actually make it legal, especially for marijuana, because it's also capable of being a product. Because if you can go into a CVS and get methamphetamine or the actual Sudafed and hand over your driver's license and get a prescription for it, why can't we do that for something that's been around longer than the Constitution, longer than the Bible, and actually can help you for your pain, your aches, your mental well-being, and help others? Now, as a veteran, I have to be able to say that oftentimes our benefits get denied. They want to take away our weapons. They want to be able to do a lot of harm to us simply because we may have had a drug offense or we actually might be on medical marijuana right now. So even as a veteran, we're being disenfranchised, and that has to change. Now, we also get into this last part about the felony disenfranchisement laws, which were first enacted as a part of the Jim Crow and have continued to disappropriate African Americans, basically 13%, totaling about 4 million people. This also was part of the John Lewis bill, where people were told that they could not vote. We understand that Schedule 1 marijuana was treated as a felony. That needs to change. Having a couple grams for recreational use in a state that's legal should not be a felony conviction. So we have to be able to make that change as soon as possible. We'll be right back. Maybe it doesn't want to work tonight, but we want to be able to thank you so much for your time tonight, and join us for part 3 the following week, where we talk about the policies to bring medical marijuana forward to all of us. Thank you and have a good night. Hold on.